Welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful night, dear viewer. Tonight, I will be telling some terrifyingly scary stories. Make sure to leave your feedback on the comments so I can make this the best experience for you. And if you have any stories you would like me to tell, you can send them through the link in the description. Let's begin. Story 1. Before I begin my story, I must maintain that my sentence to death was a wrong and vile thing to do. I maintain that I am not a killer. I did not kill the school children the authorities decided to hang me for. My sentence to death, I must maintain, is a huge misunderstanding. There must be forces out there against me who conspired to put me in prison for this very experiment, this accursed expedition. I am not deranged. I am not insane. The man in the odd multicolored sweater paid me a visit a week before my scheduled execution date. "You are the former schoolteacher Chet Adami," he asked, polite, offering me a plastic cup of coffee. I nodded, taking a sip. "I didn't kill those kids," I reiterated, for about the 1,000th time. "Are you the priest guy?" That comes before. He shook his head and waved away the guards. "My name is Canopy Hydrangea," he introduced, extending a hand. I shook it. "I understand you may not be guilty, despite what the state believes." I nodded. Finally, someone who... He cut me off. "I'm not interested in your story. Whether you die or not is of no consequence to the people I represent," he continued. "But I am here to offer you a deal. There's a place the people I represent need exploring, and I need volunteers." He produced a sheet of paper and a pen. "This agreement," he clasped it into my hands, "has you join a team of expendable volunteers such as yourself on this expedition. You get in, get the things we need, and get out. And you're free for life." This was better than dying in prison. I asked him what place this was that I'd be sent to. He told me I had to sign the form first. "I'll do it then," I cheered, signing the document. He smiled and patted me on the shoulder. "We'll even give you a whole new identity," he offered. And with that, he seized the document away from me and left the building. Within hours, I was blindfolded, sedated, and transported. When I awoke, I was strapped to a bed in a helicopter with 4 others beside me, all beginning to wake up. The man who'd offered me the deal was there too, sucking on a lollipop while rearranging documents and photographs. These images, I assumed, was the place they wanted us to explore. They were mostly all aerial photos, a sea of endless green and the occasional bird. And yet, there was more. Images of impossible landscapes. Dreamlike beings. "Ah, you guys are awake." He clapped once and walked over. The next few moments were a flash as he re-injected us with some sort of blue wriggling substance. It was cold, and I swear it pulsed inside my arm. Then we had landed, and the group was quickly taken inside a compound. We were freed and sat down in some sort of meeting room. More people were inside. A blue-haired lady joined the man. "Welcome, volunteers," he announced, pointing to a projector. "You are all, save for one, prisoners on death row," he reminded. "This offer today is simple. You enter the forest, travel to an outpost we have recently lost contact with." He turned on the projector, displayed a bright red cylinder labeled System Recorder, a 32, and recover this data module. The woman spoke next. "Easy, right?" she counted us. "We'll provide maps," she gestured to tablets. "But this forest is different." They proceeded to explain the reason they need volunteers for the assignment then. We were on an island somewhere in the Java Sea. The island had a massive forest in the center, one that at first glance seemed as normal as ever. This changed when an international mining company sent in a team of geologists to determine if there was anything of note beyond the forest. This team never returned, nor did a second team, armed with weapons. or an environmentalist group that ventured in to document new species. So then the organization our recruiters had come from entered the forest. We were on the outskirts of the forest, at a place they were calling Egg Base. Over the past month, they had begun to map the forest and determine why so many hadn't returned. The reason was illogical. The forest was bigger than the island itself. Drones that ventured in should have come out the other side, yet remained inside the forest, encountering bizarre phenomena and creatures undocumented. Every so often, the forest would slope downwards, revealing a new layer with new and distinct ecosystems. Recently, though, Canopy concluded, we've lost contact with several outposts in the 3rd layer to 8th layers. He changed the slide to one of the lost outposts, standing alone amidst a vibrant alien forest. You enter the forest, get to your team's assigned outpost, get back out with the data, and you'll be set for life. Does anyone choose to rescind their agreement? The woman asked. The woman asked, it's either death or this, and frankly, your chances here aren't that better. There were some who raised their hands. Hell no, a man shouted. I'm going back to life. The woman had them taken away. We heard gunfire outdoors. No life row for him. Whoever they were serious about this. They started to call out names and assign teams. My team was small, 4 of us. There was a mercenary named Leo who kept talking about the food the organization had brought us. He seemed pleasant, charismatic, and I almost forgot he was a criminal. There was a scientist called Anya, who, as she joked, was serving infinite life sentences for crimes against humanity. She was given the codes and a booklet of things to watch out for in what they called the Sea of Green. Then there was Gail. She was quieter than the 3 of us, and had an almost eerie vibe to her. She didn't tell us what she'd done to get here, but she was there nonetheless. Thankfully, we were given the closest and safest outpost, a little place in Layer 3, marked by the map as only a few hours walk away. We set off the next day. The forest, in the beginning, seemed to almost invite us in. The birds chirped and danced, unafraid of mankind. We even fed them the nuts we'd been given as breakfast rations, which they seemed to enjoy. About an hour in, things changed. The light from the sun barely pierced the canopy, and at times, we had to utilize our flashlights to see what was in front of us. Leo took the lead, hacking away at the branch and vine in front of us. The forest was starting to look like a jungle, and yet, as we traversed it, never seemed to choose which one it wanted to be. Wait, Anya hissed, as we crossed a stream that seemed oddly familiar. She read from the booklet, then to the map on tablets we'd been given. We've made a circle. Leo shook his head. That's impossible, he insisted. I don't remember turning. Yeah, I agreed, catching up from behind. Anya shared the booklet. It's one first phenomena researchers encounter, she explained. This place plays tricks on us. We need to follow the stream. But then Gail pointed out we'd be going in the wrong direction. Trust the book, Anya concluded. We followed the stream then, and the path started to grow denser, as if the forest hated us for traveling further. But the path was right, and the forest changed as we journeyed. An hour later, the forest had changed. It had sloped downwards a bit, inviting us to the 2nd layer of the maze. The trees seemed higher, and the light was now gone completely. This was when we started to hear it. Click. What was that? I asked. Turning. Click. Click. Anya rushed through the book. It's not documented. Click. Click. And then we saw lights in the distance. Lights that, as we continued walking, were revealed to us as bulbous fruit on the trees that glowed in eerie electric blue. Click. Click. You sure it's not in that book? Leo questioned, switching his machete out for a gun. Click. Click. The clicks were getting louder, each one sending a jolt of uneasy fear down my spine. We moved closer together now, fearing the unknown that were in these. A bush in front of us rustled. Leo aimed his weapon. A deer. No. Something like a deer popped out, gently squawking. It was. Wrong in every sense, but it seemed more occupied in chewing a flower than us. The small creature had the antlers of a deer, yes, but it also had the face of an old man, not to mention 6 fists full of thumbs at the end of its legs. It inspected a glowing fruit with its odd thumbs. "You," Gale commented, disgusted. "What the hell is that?" Anya didn't have time to look for answers before a black, insectine limp shot out of one of the bulbous fruits and impaled the deer. Thing. It screamed an all-too-human scream and struggled. We backed away, and by then, the noise was overwhelming. Click, 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 click. Click, click, click. Click, 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 click. Click, click. Click, click. They erupted from every single one of the bulbous fruits, and things began to pour out of them. The limbs, C, were attached to a head. The A, simple sphere that opened into buzzsaws of teeth that grotesquely clicked as they opened. The face deer only screamed as the clicking creatures ended it. "Run," Leo reminded, shooting as some started to near us. "Run!" That shook us out, and we ran, terror in our very veins. They seemed more interested in the fallen deer than us, but we still ran until we could no longer. Actually, it was until I fell off and entered the 3rd layer. A weight appeared on my chest, and I fought it off, thinking I was about to die. But the soft, furry creature atop me jumped off. It wasn't one of the clicking monsters. And then I realized the 3rd layer was bright. The trees themselves were glowing now, not the insect fruits of before. And there were a whole host of new, bizarre creatures. The thing I'd pushed off was some sort of rabbit, covered in glowing blue stripes. If Layer 2 had been a forest of darkness, this was its very opposite. In the skies, there were ribbons of glowing creatures. Thin kites on an unseen wind. The trees were alive with all sorts of furried friends, darting here and there and eating odd-colored berries that didn't seem real. Anya pointed and spoke. "Look." It was the outpost, in ruins. "But what attacked it?" Gale murmured as we walked over. We entered through a hole in the wall. The place was oddly peaceful, calming, now home to bioluminescent little ants that dotted the place. Occasionally, 1 or 2 of the face, deer would appear, licking the dots up with twin tongues that emerged from its 2 human face. "Cute," Leo joked, picking one up and stroking it. It screamed back at him, chilling, and he dropped it, never doing that again. The place was too peaceful. And what happened to their bodies? I posited. If they were attacked, where's their blood? "They're corpses." Anya shrugged. "It is odd. Perhaps they got devoured." She gestured to the many oddities around us. "But you're right. There should be bones, at least." This was when we heard the screaming. And all of a sudden, every single creature retreated away, disappearing from view, save for the tiny ants inside with us. The screaming was a cacophony of voices, realer than the ones we'd heard from the face. "Dear, I think we need to go," Leo whispered, holding out the red data module in his hands. Now, the screaming got ever closer, and the trees in front of the outpost, beyond a window, started to shake. I concur. We were backing away when we heard the squelching of something loud and heavy. Turning around, we saw the screaming creature we'd heard. It was massive, fleshy, and filled with tiny gaping holes, some filled with eyes, all rising, breathing as one. I nearly threw up, but that was for a different reason. The holes were one thing. They screamed and sewn into the creature. It sniffed the air and walked over to the glass, looking in as we hid. "What is it?" I squealed. "What the hell is that?" The face of a victim in military clothes appeared at the window, screaming, skin repairing and being digested all at once. Anya flipped through the pages. They called it a flesh weave. It absorbs them that way. That would explain the lack of bodies we'd seen. The window shattered, and the thing began to force itself on it. So we ran as the beasts fell into the room with a plop. And despite its heavy, gluttonous form, it charged forwards faster than it looked. Out the outpost we went. I felt a meaty hand hit me, and then I fell. It stalked towards me, but a gunshot from Leo burst. Its puss-ridden hand covered my in grotesque, viscous liquid. I picked myself up and ran from the screaming thing, up the steep slope and climbing onto the second layer. I fell again, but Anya caught me, helping me up. Leo did the same for Gale, but she slipped and fell back into the third layer. The thing approached her, all of its pulsing eyes upon her. "Help me," she bellowed. "Don't leave me." Leo prepared to jump down, but it was too late. The flesh weave simply picked her up, and it opened. Its skin, forging her into her body, ear her top half. It severed the rest. "Go," I snapped, dragging the mercenary to action. The creature behind us lifted itself onto the dark forest and continued to follow. Gale, merged with the other unfortunate bodies, screamed. I almost stopped in terror from the sound, but fight forced me to continue. Click, click. We found ourselves back in the center of the abode with the insect fruit, and the insects were clearly attracted to the stench of decay the monster emanated. Limbs emerged and the face. Beetles jumped up and swarmed the creatures. I don't know if the creature was killed by it. I only remember Gale's face as the insects started to pick her. The way out seemed harder than going in. But we made it. We survived. We reached the outpost and handed our data module to the man who'd offered us the deal. "Impressive," he congratulated. "You're the first team back." "I want out now," I panted. "Back to real life." He patted me on the shoulder and gave me a sad smile. "According to the world, you've already died by suicide in your cell," he informed. "See, there's a way the people I work for have operated so cleanly for the past few centuries." He paused and took a step back. "We can't afford loose ends. See, and you've shown us you have the guts to survive Bandai La. The Sea of Green." I took a step back, panicking. He sighed. "We can't give you a new life and risk exposing our operation here," he explained. "And we still need, expendable people to lead us to whatever's in the center of the island." He handed me a can of soda. "Welcome to your new life. The company really values your dedication as a treasured employee, but I don't want this. I was promised freedom, and they can't keep me from exposing them. I've typed this up, and Anya did something to the tablet so I can receive and post things online. I'm not sure if this'll work, but if it is, I'm on an island somewhere in the Java Sea. There's a forest that goes on forever, and I'm being held as some sort of explorer by some company. Find me, before I die." Story 2. I work for a company that studies cursed places. We uncovered a mass gravesite of over 200 people. My name is Canopy Hydrangea. I recover cursed artifacts, explore haunted places, and report back the information needed to the people I work for. The company then arranged what has to be done to remove these blemishes from the world. If it isn't possible, we make sure the evil of cursed artifacts and bizarre places doesn't make its way to the general public. But sometimes, it's important to leak a report or two to the unsuspecting public. Makes for a good warning, and this particular file is one of many that must be known. "Do you have clearance?" asked a young man. Hat with a carefully embroidered VI obscuring his face. He held out a little notepad with tables for signatures labeled "Sign," "Ins," and "Security." "We can't have anyone here without proper clearance." I sighed and took the pen that was attached to the pad. "Of course I have clearance," I said. "I'm the one supposed to be in charge of this damn operation." He looked at me in confusion. So did I. I was told by the company's board members the specific location was assigned to me, and yet my team was clearly not the first ones there. This wasn't what we were promised. Not by a long stretch. I was told Vera Luz was in charge. He pointed over to a bulkier man in camouflage gear, director agents of the company around the dig site. Veraluz. Of course he was here. He was always getting in people's business. Am I being subjected to an internal security probe? I looked him in the eye. Right now, right here. The meek young man hesitated and backed away. See, your previous assignment against the House of Loreno has some of us in the company. He chose his words carefully, doubting your status. This was no issue. I just wanted control of the dig site back in my hands. After all, I was the one sent to study it, and my team. No problem. So let's talk about the dig site. The mass grave that, as I was told by my historian Kieran, contained the corpses of over 200 skeletons, and counting. 254, he mused, counting again. And some aren't human. I asked him about it. And then I saw the bones for myself. They, at first, looked like the bones of children, but on closer inspection, found them all to be distinctly serrated. Their skulls were a bit too flat and wide to truly be human. And what was more bizarre were the limbs. Each non-human remain had 8 limbs, all that seemed like the legs and feet of ordinary human body, obviously inhuman. And the way they were connected told me this wasn't some post-mortem ritual that positioned the bodies like so after death. No, this was the real deal. Dozens of dead, non-human entities that perplexed and sent chills up my spine. And the skulls. The damn skulls were like they were smiling, of all things. And instead of 2 eye sockets, there were 4. I also noted the sharp pines of wood that impaled the skeletons. What's with that? Even before asking the aura of something. Powerful emanated from the bones. My assistant Rainey had an answer. We suspect they may not be fully dead, she informed. We're doing our best not to dislodge the wood until we can get a priest to put them at rest. I knelt down near one of the many impaled creatures and observed it. Distinct markings were present. I took off a glove and touched it, feeling the history within it. Sparks of violence. War. Famine. Well, we haven't figured out what religion this place aligns to, she pointed out. This was true. If we invited the wrong priest to bless the place, it could invoke the opposite of peaceful rest. And you haven't even seen the staircase. The what? The mass grave was discovered by an oil company looking to drill new ground. When the reports of the unusual remains came in, a report was handed over to me and my team, and we were sent to eliminate the disturbance. Remove all evidence of the bizarre and hand it back over to the oilmen. The bodies were found in concentric trenches. Squares. There were about 5, each within another, and a 6th being uncovered by the dig team. In the center of the squares was a small ruin, a large jutting cylinder with a door. Beyond this door was a spiral staircase of stone, seemingly cut in by the ancient builders of the gravesite so many centuries ago. Veraluz, the internal security inspector, awaited me there. Canopy, he greeted, extending a hand. He peered into the staircase, holding out strong, twisted rope. We've got 4 assets who'll be out just about. A man panicked, rope attached to his waist, scrambled out, hyperventilating. He was in standard prison garb. As usual, we often use death row prisoners to explore new, dangerous territory. He started to ramble about a shape in the darkness, and something about pages in a book. Sir, asked a woman, placing the man under handcuffs. What should we do with him? Remove him, Veraluz ordered. She looked at both of us, puzzled. Like kill him? Veraluz shook his head. Don't be silly. We need to know what he saw down there. Extract his memories, then have the handlers do what they please. Yuck. Memory extraction was something I hated to see. A needle laced with symbols and science, injected into the center of the eye. It would then extract memories to be read by a rather interesting looking book. The prisoner would then develop amnesia for a while. But that was no issue. The prisoners we worked with for these excursions were often terrible, irredeemable people. Veraluz and his team informed me of what they had discovered, just as 3 company agents entered the depths, rope tied along their waists. The staircase was seemingly endless. according to 2 other excursion teams they had sent into the depths. The first team had only been equipped by a radio and led by an agent of the company, but after an hour dropped from radio contact. After another hour, they should have returned. Yet they had vanished into the depths. A rescue operation was made. Equipped with rope, Varaluz sent in a team of prisoners led by a more experienced agent into the depths. Oddly enough, the initial agent leader stumbled back out, informing us the passage had shifted, and they had crossed a labyrinth underneath the entire dig site. Some sort of temple. Video footage revealed the place was a hellhole. There were signs of life, but twisted, impossible things. Strange fungal matter, and the bones of long-dead creatures, and something else still active. This active entity, according to the survivor, seemed to work in tandem with the stairway, dislodging stairs, sending one prisoner falling into the abyss. Another was seemingly sucked into the walls of the place. The last simply faded, and that was when the agent started to evacuate. The rescue team came back, fully intact. They hadn't encountered nay such temple, merely more of the same. Staircases, illuminated by the light to be made of bone. Subsequent testing informed us the bones were human. Okay, I want. As soon as I was about to say I wanted to enter the staircase, the line snapped. Whoa! Varaluz held on, and 2 agents joined him. Its being, I retreated to a machine the rope was connected to, and selected a button labeled Retract. This should. It started to pull against whatever was on the other end. But it was straining. Work. The machine started to creak, and the bulky thing began to move against itself. Security, Varaluz ordered. Get the hell over here. Now! That's when the line loosened and pulled back, and red fluid came flying from the abyss. 2 people. No. A torso and a set of legs. Rope still attached, flew out, nearly splattering us with red fluid. A man came running out, splattered in the blood of his friends. There's something down there. He said it with such fear I started what lurked in the shadows. It was like those bones. A growl emerged from deep within. My assistant Rainey came up to me. Sir, should we seal it up? She gestured to security, already prepared to request explosives. I thought about this for a moment. Not yet. No, I decided. We don't know if sealing it up will work. Whatever was inside, it was powerful. So I decided we needed a proper operation into the temple, with actual agents. Rainey, I began. Have the rest of the team meet me here. We're going in. Reckless? Maybe. But if what was inside was a threat to humanity, it needed to be neutralized, captured, and sealed away. By the way, she started. We've identified the ruin. My eyes lit up. Can we get a priest? The sooner we could remove the undead bones from the site, the safer I'd feel. Already have one. She hesitated. But, she sighed and pointed to the outskirts, where a rather fancy motorcycle had arrived. It's Quincy Kianey. Quincy Kianey was a rather eccentric figure in the cursed artifact black market. He was both an asset, working for us, telling us the details of when a major deal would go down, and an enemy. His faith to Caliu, the Salamander King, made him have so-called prophecies over when to help us and when to suddenly disappear off the grid. I made a noise somewhere between a grunt and a sigh of annoyance. Of course it's him. I watched as the man with black tinted glasses and fiery red hair waltz about the gravesite, raising his hands up and dancing. Within the hour, my team was ready. I, Canopy Hydrangea, would lead them in, coordinate our actions. My expertise in psychically sensing the bizarre would come in handy, if it need be, and the few spells I'd learned. Then there was Rainey, my assistant, who had reviewed the tapes and studied all too many places similar to this. Of course, there was Kieran, my main security guy, and today we would be joined by the rather annoying Quincy. There were others, but I didn't want to lead a large team. So we entered the depths. Veraluz attached a rope to us, connecting it to the large, bulky machine in case something attempted to pull us in. And then we were set. And so we began the journey into the depths of the pit. Canopy, we meet again. Quincy cheered. I didn't know you were in the business of exploring new and exciting places. And I thought you'd finally gotten yourself killed for good, I chided. After the Holstedt Kai incident, he laughed maniacally at that, and the noise reverberated around the walls. Were you demoted as a result of? Who were they? He thought. Lorano's team? None of your business. Kieran cut in. He held up a hand. We all silenced ourselves. Even the bothersome Quincy. There was a dull growl in the background, and the clicking of insects. No, automata, Rainey identified. Temples of the salamander have automaton, machines given life through ancient magic. Not a huge problem. The next hour was rather boring, and we continued in silence, fearing disturbing one of the more dangerous security automata. Sure, machines weren't as dangerous as any live creatures, but still a threat nonetheless. Hold it, Quincy shouted. We all stopped. He stepped ahead and knelt down, inspecting the step in front of me. He spoke something I couldn't understand, and symbols appeared, and we heard the clicking of gears. It's a classic pitfall trap. I remembered Veraluz's prisoners. The story about the place working against them. Who, Rainey posited, built this place? It is a temple of the salamander, I reminded. But those bones up there don't match anything we have on record. Quincy ordered another stop and chanted, and a wall beside us faded away, revealing a hallway. Now that's the temple. I noted the images and statues, and I think I know who built this place. Satyrs. The statues were satyrs, half man, half. Goat creatures spotted throughout mythology in ancient times. We knew them, like many other of the ancient kinds, to be extinct, long dead. But the statues of the satyrs here seemed different. More human than beast somehow. They lined the hall, facing away from us, bowing to a large statue of a salamander, an eternal flame still burning within its mouth. Look, Cryan commanded, raising his gun. A machine, moving as if it were alive, appeared in the distance. It looks just like those bones. No, it was made from the bones that had been dug up, and the eight-limbed thing came charging at us. Kieran fired to no effect, before Quincy stepped out and clapped, uttering a single word. The machinery grinded to a halt and collapsed. I was right. It had been made from the bones of the things above, strapped to gears and circuitry. Whatever those things were, the worshippers below had clearly venerated them enough to create Frankenstein, like beasts in their fashion. Well, that was. Not as cool as I thought it'd be. Kieran shrugged. And, Rainey added, gesturing to the statue. Looks like that's a sort of artifact we'll want to secure. In the mouth of the salamander statue was the flame, and as I studied it, I realized it was a book that was burning. Quincy put the flames out and handed the warm pages to me. This was powerful, all right. I reached into the ether and felt that it contained great animosity, malevolence. Something insane. Now, Quincy murmured, I don't want to alarm you, but the walls started to creak, and they began to slowly move downwards, threatening to crush us. We are at risk of immediate death. We ran out of the temple and back on the stairs, which were now starting to shake and crumble. Quincy, quick, casted some spell, and we ran, tugging on the rope. Veraluz, despite my opinions towards him, was skilled, effective, and he activated the machine, pulling us in just as the steps collapsed. The rope hung in midair, slowly drifting upwards. By the end of the hour, we were out. I gave Veraluz the details. The mass grave had completely been excavated, and all the skeletons sent to facility deep within the clutches of the company. More research would be done by a secondary team, but the immediate danger was neutralized. The automata, traps, and all had been disabled by Quincy, and the temple, according to a scan, had largely collapsed. But there was something underneath it. A second temple that mirrored the concentric squares of the graves, ready to be excavated and revealed. And according to an initial scan, there were life signs inside. That, I assume, was where the real treasures were hiding. But that isn't my business. The initial first contact was made. The fears within stabilized. My job there was done. Another day was complete. The unexplained was eliminated, and I was ready to move on another excursion. The world is filled with places like these, and I'm just one of many who work to keep these hidden away. We keep the public safe. It's what we do.